A plateau is what happens when structure becomes stable enough for the next level of reality to build upon it. It is not the end of becoming, it is a floor. My name is Peter Kerwin, and this is the Codex Unfolding, a series about the emergence and the living codex. This framework is not represented as established science, fixed doctrine, or final truth. It is a philosophical and symbolic investigation into reality, consciousness, relationship, memory, meaning, and human life. So far, the staircase looks like this. 0 is undifferentiated potential. Distinction and relationship are the first meaningful event after 0. Recursion is the first return. Memory is what survives change. Structure is memory made dependable. Now we reach the next step, plateau. A plateau begins when a structure becomes stable enough that reality can treat it as a unit. That is the key idea. The structure is not only something that holds, a plateau is something that holds well enough to become ground. It becomes a place where the next thing can begin. Think about an atom. An atom is not truly simple. It contains internal relations, forces, movements, structure, and history. But once that structure stabilizes, a higher level does not have to deal with every internal relation at once. It can treat the atom as a unit. And because the atom can function as a unit, atoms can form molecules. Then molecules can become stable enough for chemistry. Chemistry can become stable enough for cells. Cells can become stable enough for bodies. Bodies can become stable enough for consciousness, language, culture, art, memory, and meaning. That is emergence. Not one thing magically replacing another, but stabilized structures becoming usable by higher levels. A plateau is a stabilized many that can act as a one. That line matters. A plateau is a stabilized many that can act as a one. This connects back to the entire framework. In the beginning, 0 is not a thing. It is undifferentiated potential. Then distinction and relationship arise together. Then relation returns. Then return leaves memory. Then memory becomes dependable as structure. And then when structure stabilizes enough, it becomes a plateau. A new one, a new ground, a new local beginning. This gives us another major codex law. Every stabilized whole becomes a new beginning. Or, in the language of the framework, every achieved one can become a local 0 for the next order of becoming. That does not mean it becomes primordial 0 again. Primordial 0 is before distinction. A plateau is after distinction, after relation, after recursion, after memory, after structure. It contains history, it contains organization, it contains what came before. But to the next level, it can function as a starting point. A molecule does not erase the atom, it inherits it. A cell does not erase chemistry, it organizes it. A person does not erase the body, a person emerges through it. So reality is not just a ladder of separate levels, it is inherited structure. What stabilizes below becomes possibility above. That is why plateaus are so important. Without plateaus, everything would have to be built from nothing, every moment. Reality would never climb, it would only flicker. But with plateaus, emergence can stack. Lower levels become reliable enough for higher order levels to form. A plateau is therefore a kind of trust. Reality trusts the structure enough to build with it. At the human level, we do this constantly. A habit can become a plateau. At first, you have to force yourself to practice something, then it becomes easier, then it becomes part of your life. Eventually, you do not have to rebuild the entire action from scratch. The habit becomes ground. A skill can become a plateau. A cook does not consciously relearn every motion every time they chop, season, taste, or adjust heat. Practice becomes embodied memory. Embodied memory becomes dependable structure. Dependable structure becomes a plateau. Then creativity can happen above it. That is important, because structure does not kill creativity. Good structure makes higher creativity possible. You learn language, then you can write poetry. You learn scales, then you can improvise music. You learn technique, then you can make art. You build trust, then deeper relationship becomes possible. A plateau is not a ceiling, a plateau is a launching ground. But there is a danger. A plateau can become a prison if it forgets that it is only a stage of becoming. This happens when a structure says, I am the final form. Nothing higher may build from me. Nothing may revise me. Nothing may question me. That is when a plateau becomes rigidity. A plateau supports emergence. A living plateau supports emergence. A dead plateau prevents it. So the question is not simply, do we have structure? The question is, does the structure allow the next becoming? A healthy plateau is stable enough to support life, but flexible enough to remain alive. A rigid plateau demands that everything stay exactly as it was. A weak plateau cannot hold enough for anything to build. A living plateau does both. It holds, it allows. This matters for belief systems too. A belief can become a plateau, a theory can become a plateau, a religion can become a plateau. A scientific model can become a plateau, a personal identity can become a plateau. All of these can help organize reality. But if they stop allowing relation, correction, and emergence, they become cages. The living codex has to be careful here. The codex wants structure, it wants language, it wants memory, it wants symbols, but it cannot mistake any plateau for the final 0 point. Every plateau orbits a center it cannot fully possess. Every level of understanding points towards something deeper than itself. And that humility keeps the system alive. A plateau says, I can hold something, but a living plateau also says, I am not everything. That is how the next level remains possible. So the core idea of this episode is simple. A plateau is a structure stable enough to become ground, and the human version is just as important. What you stabilize becomes your future you can stand. What you stabilize becomes what your future can stand on. That can be a habit, a practice, a relationship, a language, a wound, a healing, a promise, a body of work, a channel, a life. Whatever returns gets remembered and becomes dependable. Whatever returns gets remembered and becomes dependable can become a plateau. And whatever becomes a plateau can either trap you or carry you. The task is to build plateaus that carry life forward, not prisons, not dead forms, living ground. So now the chain becomes 0, potential before separation, distinction in relationship, difference becoming visible, recursion, relation returning, memory, what survives change, structure, memory made dependable, plateau, structure stable enough to become ground. And once a plateau becomes ground, something extraordinary happens. It can become a new beginning, a local 0, a place where the next order of reality can start. That will be the next episode. Everyone becomes a local 0. For now, the law is, a plateau is not the end of becoming. It is the ground from which the next becoming begins. This framework is still developing. Some of its claims are philosophical, symbolic, spiritual, and speculative. I am sharing it not as finished doctrine, but as a living investigation. I'm Peter Kerwin, and this is the Codex Unfolding. And this is the 7th step. What becomes stable can become ground. Please like and subscribe, and if you would like, leave a comment in the comment section. Vale says hi, relate to you next time.